Welcome to the Dom Sub Devotion Podcast. Every episode of Dom Sub Devotion is an authentic reflection of our real life in a loving 24/7 DS marriage. If you crave the passion and intensity of a power exchange dynamic inside of a deeply loving and intimate relationship, you've found the right place. You can always find more from us in the show notes and at infinitedevotion.com. Thank you for listening.
Traver, I am so damn glad to have you with me today.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
This is the second time in 2 weeks that you and I have talked. So we have a little back and forth for anyone who's seeing this here. I either was or will be, depending on release dates of all this, on your podcast recently also. So thanks for coming back over here.
My pleasure, brother. Thank you for having me.
Where I'd love to start today, you built your business around working with men, and I'd love to hear, for anybody who doesn't know who the hell this Traver guy is, tell us about yourself, like who you are, what you do, introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure. I am the founder of a men's movement called the Uncivilized. And that spawned off of a book that I wrote called Man Uncivilized, which spawned off of a book that I wrote called Today I Rise. Today I Rise was a guidebook for someone going through a divorce or going through a breakup. I was in the middle of that scenario myself, and had some, it was like a very unique juncture in my life, and I'd finished a longer project, which we can talk about later if you'd like. And my best friend reached out and was like, "Hey man, you're not doing shit. You're like, every time I talk to you, you're depressed. You don't know what to do with yourself. Like you have all of this energy, but you don't know where to point it," like, which I get. It's okay to have a natural dip, but he's an internet marketer, Andrew. And this was before I knew my left elbow from the internet. And he goes, "Here's what I want you to do. I'll help you with this. I want you to write 65 emails, one a day, to the you who woke up and found out your wife was leaving. From day one to day two, like, what did you need to hear? And let's go through your whole journey." I was like, "Cool, I'll do that." And immediately, boom, I was hooked. And I started writing. And I got to 65 and went, you know what? I'm not done yet. And I'm going to turn this into 90 individual letters. And I don't want it to be an email funnel because I don't know what that means. But I do know what books are because I hold them and read them as an older person. And so I was like, I'm going to turn this into a book. And I did. I published Today I Rise. And what was crazy is somewhere in there, and again, like, I'm new to the internet back then, I put my email address in the book. I was like, "Hey, email me if this resonates." And I asked people, just as like an off the cuff, there's a chapter in the book saying, like, you're not your breakup. So list 25 things that are amazing about you. And if you want, you can email them to me. And every week I get emails from people in the midst of heartbreak, and they like will literally make me cry, because it's like, I'm a good father. I play the guitar. I can kick a soccer ball. And those people are just like grasping for something that's good about themselves. So I got those emails. But then what was really interesting is I started just getting men reaching out to me saying, "Hey man, I'm in the middle of a shitstorm of a divorce. I don't know where to get resources. I don't know what to do as a man. I'm not really interested in therapy, or I've tried and it didn't work. You seem to be doing okay. Do you have any advice for me?" These started like flooding in, Andrew. And I was at a really unique juncture of my own life where I had sold a business and I had free rent. So I wasn't worried about money. And so I'd reply to every single one of those emails and go, "Hey man, what's your phone number? I'll get on a phone call with you. I'm not selling anything. I'm not a professional. I just want to talk to you." And for about a year of my life, I just shot the shit with dudes. And it was very different than my prior relationships with men, which were usually pretty superficial, or sports and alcohol and lying about our sex lives. And it was guys being real. And towards the end of that year, someone said this, I'll never forget. He goes, "You should probably charge for these calls." And I remember thinking, Charge for what? Like, I'm just a dude who went through a thing that you're going through, and we're just two dudes talking. But what I started to realize was I had categorized people's challenges. And I could immediately open a file in my brain when a guy called and be like, hey, do you realize this is what's going on with you? And then they'd go, oh, that's super helpful. Thank you. And they'd go on their way. And so I took all of those files in my brain and I put them into a second book, which I felt at the time I couldn't find the book. I couldn't find a book that said, we want you to be structured. We want you to be powerful. We want you to be primal. We want you to have desire. We want you to be potent. And that's like the key word. And I want you to be relational. I want you to be emotionally intelligent. I want you to celebrate your sensitivity. I want you to be connected to something bigger than yourself. And most importantly, connected to your heart without losing any aspect of your power. And didn't really know what I was doing at the time, but just shoved that book into the world. And my life changed radically forever. Men came out of the woodwork, women came out of the woodwork. People asked me to come speak. It was one of those like, oh shit, I now need to build a business and have a website and hire an assistant. And that was, 6, 7 years ago. And we're now a team of 6 with workshops every year, a nonprofit spinoff, courses, another book, like the whole works, and a real journey. So I spend my time mostly talking to, teaching, and guiding men in just about every area of their lives, or I bring in professionals in the areas that I'm not astute in.
I became aware of your work, and I wanted to share this with you. I became aware of you and your work because of an interview, the first of, I think, 3 interviews that you did with Chris Bale on your podcast.
Yeah, love Chris.
And in between the first conversation that you and I had and this conversation, I got to interview Chris for an episode of this podcast,
Amazing.
which was fantastic.
Yeah.
And so this is a really cool moment for me, just having you on here. Like, these are the people who, because I was the guy who didn't do social media. I was the guy who wasn't involved in any of this. I was a damn insurance agent being like, what do you want your deductible on your car insurance to be? Like 500 or 1,000. They'd be like, oh, like that was my life before I came into this. And then, there were certain people, yourself, Chris, others included, who helped me put language to the experience that I was having as my life started to break open. And so I admire you for the work that you do. And it really does mean a lot to me to have you here. And you kind of answered this question already, but I would just love to hear what else you have to add to it. Is like, why do you care so much? Like, you care so much about men, clearly.
Yeah.
Like, why does this mean so much to you?
I'll give you the most honest answer I can give you, Andrew, is I just wrote another book, and in it, I think I wrote the sentence, and now I teach everything that I needed to know 8 years ago. And so I care because I know what I went through. I know how close I was to not being okay. And I did have resources. I did have people around me. I did have loving and caring friends. I sold a business. I had money. And since that time, I have still lost some of the closest people to me, have taken their own lives. And that, that kind of haunts me. And I've shifted, like in the beginning, it really haunted me. Every morning I'd wake up and think like, a guy's going to wake up, he's going to find my work, or he's going to find a gun. And that's not sustainable. I personally couldn't survive under that pressure.
I was going to say, that sounds like a lot of pressure.
It's a lot, right? And since it's shifted more into, I remember thinking at some point I have to survive off of more than pain and adrenaline. They're amazing fuel sources, and they will push you through. Like, you need to get out of your house, or you need to, like, if there's an emergency, rely on those. You need to get through a divorce, rely on those. Get through a crisis, rely on those. But at some point, they burn too hot, right? They'll explode my engine. And at that point, I had actually worked with a number of men and realized I just, I want to know what you want to do with your life. I care about you. I care about us. It's like, I don't want to make this tribal or team oriented, but like, this is our team. I was a team athlete for a lot of my life. You go, hey, you're on my team. I care about you. And I can see the fucking pain. For whatever reason, that was bestowed into me. I could look at men and go, I see your fucking pain, man. You know why? Because I see myself 10 years ago in you. And if I didn't have Robert
My,
Masters, right?
my turn.
Yeah, Michaela Boehm, people who could look me in the eye and say, man, I get this. I get you. I wouldn't be here. And something about it, I mean, this is going to be I'm not saying this in a romantic or sexual way. I fell in love with men. I fell in love with listening to a guy stand in front of a room with his hands shaking, saying, I think this is what I want from my life. And realizing how much courage it took him just to articulate and put voice to, I think I want to get married. I want to have kids. I want to own a sailboat. Like how terrifying and confronting that was for that man. And I fell in love with the courage of men. I fell in love with the sensitivity of men, with the sweetness of men, and truly the structure and power of men. Which that wasn't my, like, I had that. I had access to that prior. It came from a very hyper masculine world. But man, I just got to, I mean, I love people, but I think working with women for so many years, it was apparent who they were. It was apparent what they wanted. They were more on like, they lived their lives more on their sleeves. But men, you had to earn that, like, to get in there. And so I think there's a reverence too. Like when I hear a man share, this is what I long for in my life, or the number one sentence that fucks me up, Andrew, is I've never said this out loud before. Like when a man says, I've never said this out loud before, I realize I am in the place of, and I'm not a priest, but like that's often between him and God. And now I've been included in that, or I've fostered or facilitated a container or a space where that man can share that. I don't know what else I want to do with my life, right? Other than surf and get really good at jujitsu. But that's like personal. But for like my time here, what I want to be remembered for, or the legacy or the impact, is to just make the connection that, hey, there's a third person in the room and it's safe to share your heart. And doing so does not require you to give up your power. Let's fucking rock. That's it in a nutshell.
It's inspiring to hear you say that. And those moments are so special when we meet those versions of ourselves. Like I had this last night talking to a guy who was looking at working with me, and it was like I could just see him on the edge of falling apart, and watching him, like, his shoulders drop 3 inches when I told him I believed in him. It's like,
Ooh.
like, fuck.
Right?
Like, yeah, like it moves me to do this work. And it's like, it's so special that I think men are standing up for other men. And this was really the thing that I wanted to get into here at the beginning of this episode, is like, people don't believe in men.
No.
I had this experience in this conversation today where it was like, it never occurred to these people that I was talking to. It never occurred to them that a guy could actually be emotionally strong enough to, like, let his partner share her feelings with him. Like that potentiality never even crossed their mind. It's like, how did we get to a point where we don't even believe in men's capacity to be better than they are? It kills me.
Yeah, man. I teach a workshop every year with Dewey Freeman, and it's for therapists on how to better work with men. And I
What do you
tell them,
tell them?
all kinds of things. Like this is who we are. This is how we operate. And the number one thing I'll say, you know what my number one job is, the consistent message that I have to put out in the world over and over and over, is that men are humans. That's it. Like that's everything else is fucking packaging and branding. But like we have feelings. We get hurt. We have trauma. We act out. It's not just we're just not a list of bad behaviors. And I get we have really awful behaviors. And there's a person under there. There's a human under there. And we as society look at the behaviors and then slap a label on top and say, men. That's what men do. That's who men are. As opposed to having the willingness to drop below the surface and say, what happened to that man? What happened to that boy? That'll fuck everybody up. What happened to that boy? You take that question to the collective consciousness and you will get shunned. Because we're not ready to look at that yet. We're not ready to admit that yet. As a culture, we're still, hey, these are the bad guys. This is the patriarchy. You and I designed the system that oppresses everybody, even though I was busy like for the last 20 years trying to make rent. Apparently that's what we did. And so if that same system hurts us, too bad. It's on us. We built it. As opposed to saying, tell me about your father. Tell me about your upbringing. Tell me about your mother. Tell me about your teenage years. Tell me about the first time you got shamed. Tell me about the time the church crushed you, or you got sexually abused, or you got abused, or you watched your stepfather beat the shit out of your mother, and you couldn't do anything about it. Like the stories I have heard from men now in circle will crush me, but I'm also not surprised. You just go, oh, no one's ever talked about this before. So you're speaking directly to the point. No one thinks we have any capacity. We're just these big hairy apes running around like idiots. They're trying to fuck everything or burn everything to the ground or make money. It's like that's the only three drives we have. We're very complex humans. We're very, very emotional creatures. That alone, I asked Michaela Boehm, what's the number one thing you wish society knew about men? This was 5-6 years ago. It was a live call with a bunch of people on it. And I'll never forget when she said, how sensitive you are. And you could have heard a pin drop, Andrew. And you could have heard a pin drop in my own head. Because I was like, that is not what I thought you were going to say. Whew.
Well, this has been one of the big realizations for me too. That's really led me to a lot of my work is the sensitivity of men is like an inborn characteristic. It's a natural piece. And it's why, what do women say when they say like this guy is not showing up for me, right? He's emotionally unavailable. Mm-hmm. Well, does anybody pause to think why? Because he's emotionally sensitive. He got the shit beat out of his heart and he built walls there to protect it. Like that's pain. That's not him being a dick. He's in pain. And like we only act to defend that which is the most precious to us, that which is the most if we wanted to get deep into energetics here, which I know you love to talk about too, but like, this is where we are receptive as a man. This is why we're so sensitive. It's our heart. So it's why we build the walls. It's why men are quote unquote emotionally unavailable, because we got hurt when we were 1, 2, 3, 4, and we never let anyone in again. We decided, nope. And it like that bites hard when you hear it. And what would you say to a man who's listening to this right now? Because I guarantee there are going to be some who are hearing this and going, oh shit. Ouch.
I get you. Like I understand you. I was you. Right? And there's another side to this. I don't remember who first told me that we don't selectively numb. That we can't do that. We can't just say like, oh, I'm just going to get rid of sadness and grief but I'll totally let in joy and exuberance. It doesn't work that way. Like our emotions are like a bathtub. If we want to get rid of some, we get rid of we get rid of all. And so to that man, I would say, like, brother, I get you. I understand you. And the same fucking courage that has had us walk into battle, had us go to the moon, had us build skyscrapers, had us fight for the things that we believed in and we loved, is available to us as men. We are extraordinarily courageous. Look at history. It's just littered with courageous story after courageous story. That adventurous, courageous warrior spirit is now available and on tap, and that's what's necessary to do this inner work. So you think you're fucking tough? Think you're a badass? Beautiful. Take the walls down around your heart for a day. Put the courage there. Put that warrior spirit there. And don't just do it to prove me right or prove me wrong. There's a benefit to this. You will be more powerful in the world. You will be a better partner. You will be a better lover. You will be a better father. You will be a better brother, a better businessman. You will have a better human experience. Now, here's the rub. You will have a real human experience, which means you're also going to feel pain. You're going to feel grief. You're going to feel frustration. But you're going to feel joy. You're going to feel ecstasy. You're going to feel satisfaction. You're not just going to live in this zone of numb where everything's kind of, quote, okay, but you know it's not. So to that man, like, dare to feel, man. Trust me, there are days when I'm like, man, I wish I could go back to 1998 when I didn't know shit and everything was cool, even though it wasn't cool. It was just like, it just required 6 beers and everything was cool. But I wouldn't last 30 seconds back in that life. It would be like going back into a life of black and white when you've lived HD color, right? When you can, it's like losing a sense. Like imagine like not being able to smell and be like, well, I'm willfully doing this because it's scary to me because I don't want to smell things that smell bad. Fuck that, we wouldn't do it. Like, this is, I remember I got a buddy named Stefanos. You know him? No, Steph?
I know the name. I haven't met him.
Cool guy. You should interview him. Remember him talking to a group of men saying, like, we've been to the moon, supposedly. We've been to Mars. We've gone as far as we're going to go that way. But we won't even go an inch inward. Now the time is to go inward. That is the true frontier. Like our ancestors that rode wagons across the country, we're not being asked to do that anymore, externally. But we are being asked to do that internally. So draw on that same courage.
Damn, you spit the truth. I love that.
Okay.
You know, I grew up in a blue collar family, and hearing you say all of this just kind of reminds me of the men that I grew up around, right? 6 beers on, well, probably more than 6 after you get home from work. You know, I guess I was blessed. My father was really never a big drinker. He was a very kind, almost excessively kind to the point of like I've never seen him activated or agitated in my whole life, not one time.
Okay.
But there's a certain blessing also to the fact that like he was so stoic, right? So, you know, I learned some things from him. But it hit me as you were talking. We have, right, these 5 senses: sight, smell, touch, taste, sound. But there's a 6th one. It's the felt sense.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this, and I hate the word patriarchy so much, but I get what people mean when they say it.
Sure.
But if this was a bunch of men who were afraid, that were wounded, that were hurt, that were coming up with the idea of and documenting what are our senses, maybe it's not a surprise that the felt sense wasn't actually included as one of the senses.
For sure. It makes total sense. No pun intended, right? It does. And how do we manipulate people? We get them out of their bodies. I've joked half-heartedly. Imagine the change in just America if for an entire year, just 1 year, you can go back to it after a year, every man was sober. And I'm not a pusher of sobriety. It's not my message. But think of what would change. Like once we got through the first month of chaos and trauma and explosions of guys going, actually, I hate my job. I don't have the way to compensate for living a life that I don't want to live anymore. I don't like my relationship. I want more from my partner. I want more from this experience of life. We have selectively and very, I think, systematically trained men to be numb because, quote, then we're good little soldiers. We're off to the mills and we're off to the factories and we're off to IBM and we're off to the tech company and we're off to whatever. And we just work. And we take our souls and we just crush them down and squish them down and then go, how come we lead every negative health statistic that doesn't have to do with breasts or ovaries? How come our mental health is on such a decline? How come we are the suicidal ones? How come we're the ones raping and abusing and acting out in all of these ways? What's the root of that? Oh, most of us don't want to be doing the shit that we're doing. But we can't feel it long enough to make a change.
Yeah, what if we looked at those things like as a symptom rather than as a problem?
100%. And honestly, I will say to people and get shit for this, like, it makes sense to me why we drink so much. It makes sense to me why we're so violent. It makes sense to me. This is a natural outcome of being in this situation. If I turned the heat up in here to 107 degrees and I sat in here on this interview, it would make sense that I'm sweating through my shirt. You wouldn't be like, man, something's weird with you. Right?
Well, I love this analogy, right? If you take an orange and you squeeze it really hard, what comes out of the orange?
Orange juice.
Orange juice. So if you take a man and you squeeze him really hard and you put a lot of pressure on him, and what is coming out of him is anger, rage, depression, anxiety, stress, fear, guess what? That's what's inside of him. That's what's coming out because that's his orange juice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%. And then we under-equip him in the number one area of pain and suffering, which is, or number two area. Number one is self-regulation. Number two, which is sort of your domain, is the skill of relationship. I can look back 8 years ago when I was married, or 10 years ago, and go, I was a white belt in a black belt tournament. No wonder I got my ass handed to me over and over and over again. And was like, wait a minute, why isn't this working? Oh, I just have to do white belt shit harder. Or hope that someday, like, oh, I don't get choked out today. Okay, today was a good day. As opposed to now, I'm not going to claim to be a black belt, but I've been in relationships since where I go, oh, that skill that I learned is extremely useful in lowering resentment, in having a hard conversation, in creating connection, in reestablishing connection after a disagreement, of repair, of holding space, of all of these things that I think men were so eager to want to be there with our partners and with ourselves, but we literally don't have the skill. And go, man, we're just getting fucking choked out here. Okay, let's leave the game. We quit the game now. Okay, well, what else is going to take up our time? Well, there's video games, there's porn, there's hookers, there's drugs, there's violence. Okay, let's do that. Because we have to orient towards something. So there's this multifaceted challenge. And I don't want to paint us as victims. I'll say that we also are victimized. But I think most guys, because I've worked with so many guys now, where I said, hey, did you just not know? And they break down and be like, I just didn't know. I didn't know about this relationship thing. I didn't know about energetics. I didn't know about emotional intelligence. I didn't know about my emotions. I'm not dumb in the head. I'm not academically dumb. But if you ask me how I feel, which is what I would do with every one of my first clients, and they would sort of break down and go, brother, I just don't know. Okay, let's go through the ones you do know. Are you angry? No. Are you horny? No. Are you sad? I don't know. I don't know about that one. Okay, cool. So we get to oscillate between sort of angry and horny. Okay, those are the ones you do know. Okay, cool. We have work to do. Right? Every Tuesday, you and I are recording on a Tuesday. We do a 2-word check-in with my guys in the nation. And Dave puts in the wheel of emotion where it's got like 60 ideas. And guys can go through and be like, oh, wow. Wow, okay. I'm that one. I'm that one. I didn't even know I had languaging for 60 emotions or however many it is beyond the 2 that they came in with. So that's a big deal too, man.
Yeah, and it's important, and I think it's also important, and I know that you do this well, so I'm curious to hear you reflect on this. Is it's important to get the languaging, to build those skills, to build the self awareness,
Mm-hmm.
but then also not to get trapped in this place the of being the emotionally expressive one, right? It's like that's a skill we have to learn, and it's something we have to do to move that energy of the pain that we carry. We have to be able to move that energy out.
Yeah.
I like your bathtub analogy with emotions. The way I've started describing that is like cones on a highway, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you start putting cones out on a 10-lane highway in Atlanta and you narrow it down to one lane, like all of the emotion has to go through that one lane. Like that's how much capacity there is. And you've got backed up traffic.
Mm-hmm.
So you can either sit in that backup or you can take the cones out.
Right.
So you can move that energy, but how does a guy not get stuck then in what kind of to me becomes this woo-woo spiritual love and light guy
Mm-hmm.
who's all expression, who's all heart and no balls, to use or I think David Data's way of saying it was no all heart and no spine, but
Yeah.
I always say all heart and no balls. Like that's not it either. So how do guys get both in your language?
First, they tell them it's okay if you swing over to the pendulum side of all emotion. You're gonna do it. It's a natural, like, oh my God, I haven't felt in 40 years. Now I just want to feel everything all the time. And if the supermarket person is like, hey, how are you doing? Like, well, let me pull out my 60 wheels of emotion, and I hope you have the next 90 minutes while I tell
I'm
you about
happy and horny.
right, right. And my inner child feels this, and my inner teenager. And we go, cool, you've got some new tools, and they're at the forefront. Now, let's also circle you back to why are you here? What are you building? And where is your structure? Right? I want to have full access of my emotions. And there are times, very specific times, and a lot of times where I go, I feel that, and I have this job to do. Right? I lived in an ashram for a couple months, man, and I remember how often I heard the term, well, I don't really feel called to X, Y, and Z. I'm from the East Coast. I was an athlete growing up. Like, I grew up with tyrannical coaches. No one asked me what I fucking felt called to do. It was like, shut up and do it. And so, somewhere in between, here's what I'll say it: emotions are like a chainsaw. There's a time to cut down trees, right? That's when you want to have that. Relationally, they are the glue in connection and relationship. Emotion is the glue. And there's a time to do. There's a time for primality. Right? I split primal and divine with my work. When men lose access to that primal power and they dump over fully into the emotional power, they become impotent in their lives, not just but in their whole lives. They lose that structure. Men on the other side, who are all structure and no feeling, they lose connection. They're literally just, you become robotic. So how do you get a guy to do both? You remind him of his bigger mission. You remind him of his bigger purpose, which you and I have both built businesses. There are times when I've worked 18-hour days, 20-hour days. There were nights where I was up writing till 2, 3 in the morning. This isn't healthy. I would not advise this as a way of life. But there were specific times when I went, what's bigger than I am? The mission, the purpose, the drive, the thing that I'm building. And I would tap into that. And go, okay, also, can I use this tool, Andrew? I have this tool of emotion. I'm sad. I'm going through grief. I've got anger right now. Cool. Do I fall in that hole and let it consume me and let it collapse me? Or do I find a way to use it as fuel? Okay, I'm fucking angry right now. If my mission is to change the way a million men express their masculinity, what can I do with that anger? Do I stomp around my apartment and yell at the wall? Or do I write something? Do I shoot a video? Do I jot down notes of things I want to do in the next workshop, etc.? You start to look at emotion, not, I don't want this to sound surgical and detached, but emotion's a tool too. There's a time to use it and a time to just feel it. It's very similar. I would share with guys, it's like food. There are times when I want to sit down and I want to eat a beautiful dinner that is just for flavor, and it's not going to be the healthiest. And there are times when I'm in a 6-week training cycle where I'm like, I'm not eating ice cream. I'm not eating Snickers bars, no matter how delicious everything is, because my goal is, boom, that for the next 6 weeks. And how do we mix both? Right? I am a huge fan of yes and. Yes and, yes and, yes and. I think it's one of the reasons why, even though Uncivilized grew, quote, quickly, we didn't grow as fast as I wanted us to because we didn't pick an extreme end. I wasn't like, all right, we're a bunch of David Gogginses, go scream in the mirror, blah, 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 blah. Or a bunch of softies who are just going to be crying and doing medicine circles and singing and dancing. I want guys to have access to both. So guys listening to this, ask yourself this. After a period, if you're new to emotion, cool, swim in it for a couple months. Like, talk to everybody about how you feel. Then come back to the P&L of your life. Right? Are you getting done what you need to get done? Do you feel powerful? Do the people around you feel safe? Are you protective? Or are you now part of a liability? Do people not feel safe around you because you are so, quote, emotional? That's when I think we need to keep in check and hang out with other dudes who are integrated. That's the best advice I can give you. Hang out with other men who have integrated both sides of this coin. Because they'll tell you, okay, man, I love it. But you came to us 6 weeks ago and you said you had a goal. And every week for the last 6 weeks, you've just cried in the meetings and talked about how hard the goal is. We get it. Shit's hard. And we think your expression's beautiful. And by next week, you need to move that fucking needle. Because that's why you're in this group too, right? Or you have the dude on the other side who's like, goal, 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 goal. And the guys are like, hey, man, how are your kids? How's your wife? How are you? How are you, the human? Not you, the spreadsheet, or you, the P&L. How are you? So I think that's a long-winded answer to a short question. I want guys to have access to both sides and recognize that the ability to go back and forth between the two is the mastery that you're looking for. Because it encompasses the entirety of the human experience. When I'm crying on the couch, grieving over the loss of somebody, some part of my brain goes, fuck yeah, this is what it means to be human. And there's times when I'm writing at 2 a.m. and my brain's like, fuck yeah, this is what it means to be human. Both. I don't want anything to take away from people's humanity. Period. Period fucking period.
Yeah, it's like a full immersion in the moment, in the moments of your life.
Yeah. What does the moment call for?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Life has this energy. It has this call. It will ask of you. There are chapters of our lives where we are meant to be low and under the surface and emotional and grieving. And there are times when we're supposed to be up here and high and output and driven and there's times in the middle. And I think when we can tap into what life is asking of us, and we have the ability to go to wherever it is life is inviting us, then our lives are beautiful, brother. Our lives are wonderful. Hard, but wonderful. Real. Right? Raw, real, relational. That's my shtick.
It's not meant to be easy. I think that's the lie that we tell ourselves is like that eventually we're going to get to a place where everything is easy. Right. It's like easy isn't the goal. Real is the goal.
Yeah, easy doesn't exist. Yeah, look at nature. When we came from
Brutal.
brutality. Are there beautiful sunny days? Sure, but they don't last. And I think we know that intuitively. I think one of the challenges men have, honestly, Andrew, is like we know this shouldn't be this easy. Like I know that if I push a button on my phone and food shows up outside my door, that there's like a slippery slope of my brain going, don't get too accustomed to this. Because if the internet goes down, you still got to know how to feed yourself. I'm really grateful that I'm old enough to know how to use a map, like an
Yeah.
actual paper map, right? I remember driving cross country. You may remember triptychs from AAA, where you'd like turn the page and it was like the next page of the map, right?
Oh no, no, like nope. I'm talking Atlas, brother. Like road atlas, following like what town are we going through?
Right?
Timbuktu. Okay, that means we're here.
Right? I remember 2 years ago or so, I drove to Vancouver, or it was a number of years ago, and I just got in the car and just like started driving towards the freeway, and then was like Vancouver in my phone, like no idea where I was going until 10 minutes into the trip. Right?
Didn't even have to think about it.
Somewhere that's unsettling. I think that's why men still go to survival programs, or they go to jujitsu. They go to places where what is real and pure is what's available. And it's just going to get worse and worse now that ChatGPT, like I could be an AI image having this interview, and it's not. I'm in the other room, masturbating, and here my image is chatting with you, which in 6 months will probably be a reality.
AI Trevor is great.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I fed it a lot of content.
You really killed it with that AI Traver.
Thank you.
Um, one of the things I think really is a powerful thing for men if they're wanting to like really step into a more immersive experience of their own life and to start kind of meeting themselves is to remove some of the shit that you do
Mm-hmm.
that you use as a distraction. Take
Mm-hmm.
it away. Like just take a break. You said this before, like you don't have to make a lifelong commitment to this,
Mm-hmm.
but what if you took a week off of drinking, drugs, video games, and social media? What if you took a week?
Mm-hmm.
Like, could you do it? What would you have to face? What would you no longer get to avoid?
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. It would be a game changer.
Yeah. I think I love your question about if all men were sober for a year.
Mm-hmm.
But I think really the reality of that question is if you remove one numbing substance from someone's life, they're just going to find another one.
Yeah, sure.
But I know you also have had some experience with like taking yourself out of your life in a way
Mm-hmm.
to see yourself more deeply. And I'd
Mm-hmm.
love to get into this
Sure.
experience of you and darkness retreats.
Mm-hmm.
Could you share a little bit about like what you've done? And I know you briefly mentioned to me earlier that you have something else that not so brief coming. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that whole experience. Like, what have you done? What has it meant to you? Like, what's it like?
So I've done what's called a dark retreat, which
Okay.
is what it sounds like. And you've probably seen some of these on social media where they'll show the reveal of someone coming out of 3 days in the darkness or a week in the darkness. I think Aaron Rodgers did a week a couple of years ago, so it was like a big thing in the press. Um, excuse me. And you are literally alone in a very small room with zero light 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like zero light. People often get tripped up on the idea of like, oh, your eyes must adapt after some period. There's no adaptation. There's zero, zero, zero light. And in 2016, I did 28 days. And this coming May, I'm going back in to do 49 days. And it
Wow.
is, to say it was life changing for me personally is an understatement. It was probably the second biggest initiation after my divorce, the first one that I entered into voluntarily. And I just wrote a book about it called 28 Days in Darkness. It's profound, Andrew, because even your eyes are a distraction, right? I don't know if you've ever had this experience pre-phones, like sitting in a doctor's office and there's nothing to do. You're up in a half hour, and so I just would like read the posters on the wall, or look around the room and see like what are the other people wearing, or what are blah blah blah. There's something to do externally, and so this process literally removes everything that's not internal, other than your skin and maybe going to the bathroom or something. Uh, so think of like a radical reclusion from society, from humans, from touch, from conversation, from music, from light, from joy. On some level, it is death. It is a, I went in because a guy said, if you really want to understand death without dying, you need to do a dark retreat. And that was my subject of interest at the time. And it truly, truly, truly becomes that feel. I remember this, we can jump ahead a bit in my experience in there, but around day 25, 24, 25, so think 3 weeks in, all the craziness, the hallucinations, the losing my mind, uh, I was being fed very little, the room was uncomfortable, it was concrete. Like, I lost my fucking mind. And for about a day, thought I was dead or couldn't decipher. Like there's a cognitive part of my brain that was like, well, let's try to figure this out. And I couldn't get to the answer of I'm still alive, despite breathing and even holding the question. It was that far into the experience. And that's profound. That was a somatic experience of, oh, this is what death is. Someday, probably not that long from now, and especially in the time of Earth, I will be in a pitch black space. I'll either be in a hole in the ground or cremated or whatever. And guess what? The world will go on around me. Nature is still right outside this door. Everything in humanity, wars, love, babies being born, fights with neighbors, social media, it's right outside this door. It's right there, and I don't have access to it. So to me, it's so profound. I also view darkness as an entity, not just the absence of light. Like you wouldn't put your hand in a bowl of water and be like, oh, this is what not air feels like. When you take air away, you have water. Like, no, water is a separate entity. And so darkness, it evokes aspects of us. It allows aspects of us. It encourages aspects of us. It unearths aspects of us that I don't think are available in the light. And so this is a deep dive into my psyche, into our psyche, I mean, it was crazy how many times I would be able to put myself in a room from 30 years ago in my head, 40 years ago, and see the entirety of the room in clarity. I could walk around like my childhood elementary school classroom. And now if you ask me today, like, what did you have for breakfast 3 days ago? I'd be like, fuck, man. I don't know, probably a smoothie or eggs. But that was 40 years ago. It's still imprinted in there. And that's the cognitive piece. But emotionally, too, there would be memories that would come up that would run every 6 to 10 seconds for 24 hours until I dealt with them. So imagine watching your TV and it's the same 8 seconds of you getting punched in the face or screaming at someone or fucking up somehow. And that thing is going to run and run and run and run and run until you're insane, or until you can stop and try to navigate whatever it is it's asking of you, and then poof, it would be gone. And there'd be like an hour of peace. And then boom, another one. Like, fuck, I have to deal with this now. Okay, what is this? What is this? What is so it's insanity, man. Yeah, I'll stop there.
It's just fascinating, and I want to ask like the really dumb obvious questions, like how do you know that it's day 25? Like, how do you know what day it is?
Yeah, I was a CrossFitter, So I was used to numbers. Like I would take 100 reps and go, cool, that's 10 reps 10 times. And so
Mm.
I would use the meals. Oh, I've eaten 9 meals. This is day 3. So there was that was sort of the level of accountability. And if you want a fun story, I don't remember what day it was, but it was towards the end. And I was trying to figure out, like, wait, when am I getting out? Is it in 3 days, in 4 days? And I had the opportunity anytime I wanted to write a note and then put it in the little mailbox where the food would come and go. And whoever grabbed the food would take the note and then go back up to the main part and answer whatever question. And I wrote, like, can I speak to someone? And I think that's what it said. Because again, I'm writing in the dark. And the next morning, a guy comes down, and I found out later because he and I were friends that he thought I was going to ask like a very deep spiritual question. So he woke up, he took a shower, he meditated, he did yoga, he donned like really nice clothes, like walked down slowly, and was like, knock, knock, knock. I've heard you're asking to speak with someone. I'm here. And I was like, yeah, dude, what day is it? And then he was like, I think you're like it's day 24, right? And he was like, is that it? I'm like, yeah, that's it. And then he starts walking off, and it's a thick enclosure that I'm in to keep the light out. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't think it's day 24. And he was like, wrong. And they would feed me a dessert every Saturday. That was like the one treat. And so I was like, wait a minute, I have had 3 desserts, and it's been however many days. So I think he's wrong. And then maybe an hour later, Andrew, I hear like footstep, 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 knock, knock, knock. Hey man, I was wrong. Sorry. It's day 25 or whatever it was, which I thought was right. And I was like, motherfucker, I'm in here by myself with no light, and I know what it is.
I'm already going crazy, and now you're making me
Yeah,
question the little bit of sanity I have left.
yeah, yeah.
What's the anticipation of going in now for 3 weeks longer than that?
I want to answer you honestly. I'm holding 2 very competing ideas, and it's very stressful to hold these 2 competing ideas. And the first idea is a almost deep, unwavering faith in myself that I've done this, I can do it again. I know something of what's going to happen. The length of time is daunting, but I can do this. And absolute fucking terror of the lack of control. I have no idea what's waiting for me psychologically, what my brain, my being, the room, God, the darkness is going to present to me and make me navigate. Because I never would have imagined the things I had to sort through last time. Right? It's kind of so like if you've ever done ayahuasca or plant medicine. Like you show up with an intention, and then the medicine takes you on the ride it wants to take you on. And so yeah, I'm fucking scared, man. 7 weeks is a long time. And I'm not coming fresh off of a divorce and the loss of family and the loss of a business and all the things that I was last time. But I've had a hell of a year and been knocked down slowly as opposed to last time it was the sledgehammer. This has just been chipped away where I'm not on rock bottom, but I can see it. And so I know there's going to be real shit that I have to navigate when I get in there. So that's my anticipation.
Was there a method to choosing 49 days versus some other number?
That's the prescribed dose in the lineage, right? In Tibetan lineage and other spiritual practices, like we in the West have turned it into 3 days and a week or whatever you want, but that was the time. Like you go in for 7 weeks, and this is my 49th year on Earth. So I thought, okay, let's match the year with the days, and I want the full dose. I want to see what it's like to. I want to see what's on the other side of day 28, day 32, day 35 that like I didn't get to the first time. I don't think I would have lived through it the first time. I was not in a good place when I came out after 28 days. But I know somewhat, like I have a structure of what will happen. I've done it before.
A
So
little
that
more
was
prepared.
a little, it's again, for anybody who has done plant medicine, it's like a fight, right? I used to fight. You're prepared, you do all you can, and then you get in there and you get your face beaten in. Or you get in there and win. You have no fucking idea what your opponent's going to do. You can watch all the film you want on him. He's going to do what he's going to do. And the goal is just to go in there and say, like, okay, I think I know how to navigate each thing, and I trust myself that there's some intuitive knowledge that will get me through this, or I will learn along the way. That's really what I'm leaning into, is I'm not a psychopath. I'm not a masochist. And I have a deep sense of faith. And I remember the day when I woke up and I felt, okay, I have to go back in. This isn't a choice. This isn't, I'm literally being called back in. To ignore that call would be far more detrimental than to heed it. And that's what I'm leaning into also. Like, all right, I'll trust whatever's calling me back in there. I'll trust life.
Learning to tune into those signals to kind of bring this back full circle, like that is a function of that sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
To know that is there, that calling is a true and real calling, takes a real deep attunement to yourself. So I give you a lot of props and credit for that, for sure.
Thank you. Yeah.
There's this thing I say to men all the time, and people said it to and around me, I'm sure, lots of times before it finally hit. And I know it goes over people's heads until it really lands for them, is this concept of you have to die to the idea of yourself. Mm-hmm. If you really want to meet yourself, mm-hmm. you have to completely die to the man that you think that you are. You have to die to your own self-concept. And I can't help but think that this is, like, these darkness journeys are what seems to me about as powerful and just, to someone who's never done it, on the edge of insane version of dying to yourself, dying to the idea of yourself.
It is 1,000%. When that man told me, do you want to understand or experience death without dying? And then explained what a dark retreat was, because I'd never heard the concept. I just literally didn't know this thing existed. And then went home and looked it up and thought, every single skill that I have will be useless in there. Every external skill. Right? I was really proud of the fact I could deadlift 450 pounds at the time. Who fucking cares? I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm an ex-pro fighter. I'm a writer. I'm a speaker. I'm a storyteller. It's useless. Fucking useless. I can speak a couple languages. Who am I going to talk to in Japanese, in Spanish? Nobody. Nothing. It literally was like, do you want to see what other skill sets are there? And maybe if you have them or not? And two, who are you? Without the purple belt, without the deadlift, without the acuity, without the languages, without the ability to write, who the fuck are you really? And that is a terrible experience to navigate, and it's liberation. You said it. It's like freedom via death, death of the ego, death of the construct. The only advice I got, people were like, well, what advice did you get going in? The guy who ran the ashram was like, shit's going to get hard. Every time it does, you just ask, who am I? Who am I? And not in the like, who am I? Yeah, fuck yeah, I'm Traver Boehm. It's like, who am I really? Who am I under this name that someone gave me? Who am I under this place that I was born that I didn't choose to? Who am I if I'm not a man in here? I'm not a man. Who am I? Like, that is some potent work to do on yourself. And I don't think we get to do it, Andrew, like in between meetings or, on vacation where we're trying to relax and still Like watch the kids at the pool. It requires a reclusion. It requires leaving society. It requires something sacred like this. And it requires getting beat up a little bit. You know, I picked 28 days the first time. Really, one was naivete. I had no idea how long that was until like day 3. You're like, oh, fuck. But also, I had a general sense that I could probably white knuckle 10 days. Just do a lot of push ups, a lot of sit ups, a lot of meditating, sing something. Like, I could get through 10 days. But I did not think, I knew I would not make it with my own ego past that. And I didn't make it past day 7 without falling apart. And then, like, cool, 3 more weeks. All right, game on. Let's do it.
This, your stories of the darkness and the divorce are 2 examples of a really beautiful concept that something has to break through. Like, we, as men, I believe we need something to break through. To me, letting a woman all the way into your heart, standing in full intimacy in front of her, is another thing that can really break through if you really let her all the way in. But, and some men, this is, like, they just go to, with their numbing, their drugs, their alcohol, whatever, until they break something in their life. But eventually something has to break through. And I love what you're doing with that. I love it for you, and I love it as an example, because it can be really hard sometimes to imagine that something can break through without everything falling apart.
Yeah. I think that's most men's fear.
Yeah. And I mean, shit does have to fall apart to some extent. Something needs to fall apart, but
For sure.
to do it in a way that you are taking responsibility for it and taking ownership for, like, I'm going to do this for me rather than wait for it to happen to me, is fucking inspiring. And
I appreciate that. Yeah.
I see you there.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
So before we wrap up, Traver, if you had one thought that you wanted to share with men, if men who are listening to this, like, if they're seeing you for the first time, like, if you could put one thing on the billboard, what would it be? Like, what do you want the world to know from what you've learned?
It's two sentences for them. One, I believe you. No, I don't think people believe men. And 2, I believe in you. We are solitary creatures. Like, we are meant to go out there, prove yourself. Then I'll believe in you, is the messaging. So I believe you. Shit has happened to men. Shit has happened to every man I've met. And a lot of it, I wonder, how are you still standing? How are you not a heroin addict? How are you just functioning as a human being? Man, I'm so sorry no one believed you, or didn't even give you the space to acknowledge that something that happened to you could affect you. And I believe in your ideas. I believe in your mission. I believe in your goals. I believe in your purpose. I believe in your dreams. I believe in you as a man. That you wouldn't have gotten put here at this time in this place without something that you want to bring into the world. I fucking believe you. And I believe in you.
Thank you. That's really powerful for people to hear. How do people find you, look you up, get a hold of you, work with you? Like, where should someone go if they want to meet Traver?
I'm on Instagram a lot, more than I want to be, at Traver Boehm, TraverBoehm. You can go to manuncivilized.com. So my next book, 28 Days in Darkness, is manuncivilized.com/28 days. Get a hold of Man Uncivilized, that book, and I'm also podcast host on the Uncivilized podcast.
We'll link to all that good stuff, I'm sure. So thank you for being here. This was truly a special conversation for me in a lot of ways. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you too. Thank you.
Thanks, Traver.